Welcome back to episode 3 of my Persona 4 Gold and Platinum run. Persona 4 is one of my all-time favourite games, so I wanted to share the journey to get every trophy this game offers. As such, today, we're taking on the Risette case. Starting off just after rescuing Kanji, which we did in the last video, the investigation team discusses the rainy weather approaching, where Yosuke is worried about the approaching school campout being rained out. The girls notices how excited Yosuke is for the trip, wondering why, as it's obvious he isn't aware what the trip is actually about. The girls then break it to him that they're going to be cleaning up trash off the mountain to build a love for the community. Trying to cheer him up about the ordeal, they talk about some of the fun stuff they did last time. The one that catches Yosuke's attention the most, however, is how the students can go swimming in the river before going home, to which Yosuke is obviously planning for. After school, Mr. Moroka picks on Yu, telling him to go and help out the Student Health Association to cover for a sick student. Helping out there, we come to realize that Saki Kanishi's brother, Saki being one of the people murdered in the first part, was the sick one as he comes to the association late. He wants to get out of helping, but we keep him to do a bit of cleaning before leaving. The next day, Yosuke asks Yu to get his motorcycle license so we can go pick up some girls. Kanji comes by and shows the hole in his plan that since all either of you could afford is a scooter, you can't have multiple people riding on one at one time. Still determined, however, Yosuke accidentally motivates Kanji to come with them on their operation, even though he isn't even old enough to get his scooter license. Yu agrees to it because it'll expand his options, so we start studying. That night, we managed to convince Zaczumba to allow us to get a motorcycle license, with help from Adachi complaining about how hard it is to get around here. He also agrees to talk more about getting a scooter once Yu has his license. Speaking of which, however, Yosuke and Yu both get their license on their first try the next day. Getting back to Inaba, we see Zaczumba at the gas station. We tell him about how we've already gotten our licenses, and as such, he shows us his old scooter he had lying around, which he is very proud to give to Yu. This now allows Yu to ride his bike around to get a feel for Inaba, which will eventually allow us to explore more areas. Yu also starts Kanji's social link, where a kid has accused Kanji of being part of a bullying group, so we go to make sure he isn't, which he obviously isn't. He also spends some time with Adachi, inviting him over to have dinner with Yu and Nanako. He gets on her good side by showing off his own magic trick, by somehow putting a coin he was holding in my pocket, even though we were on opposite sides of the table. We also introduce Marie to Chie and Yukiko, who notices how they're always wearing green and red, to the point it's the only colour items they pick out to wear. It was now that I was also able to get my first trophy of the month, Bug Hunter, for swinging the bug net at the correct time. I failed to mention the bug net and fishing side quest because ultimately it's not really that important, and it's also kinda hard to set up, but I will be getting everything done with it just for completion's sake. Getting back to social links, we hang out with Yukiko, who is wondering if she'll ever be able to come back to Inaba once she's left. That's when a staff member of the inn happens upon us, who thinks we're a couple and leaves. This makes Yukiko blush and try to play it off, and then she tells us about how the staff have really been trying to help her become better at cooking, even spending their free time to help her out. I mean, I'm sure she won't need it. I'm sure her cooking's fine. Speaking of not social links, we come to Yosuke's plan. We see that Kanji followed both of us here, managing to keep up on his bike. Kanji runs off to get some supplies, so we hang out around our bikes waiting for a girl to walk up to us. 3 hours later, nobody has come to chat with us and Kanji finally gets back from his shopping. For some reason, we all feel disappointed that our plan didn't work, so Kanji decides to make it a challenge to get a girl's phone number. After we try a few people around town, mostly for the stat points I can get, we manage to get one from a nice looking girl who's a little bit older than us. Kanji goes first, having gotten one, though it's obvious that she's not genuine when she starts going on about how much it'll cost for an hour. We go next with ours, but this time a guy picks up. When he gets obviously angry that we try to hit on his girl, Yu hangs up. Yosuke goes last with the number he got, saying that he went for someone a bit older. When he tries calling though, something seems off, especially when she says they go to the same school. This is where a game introduces a really minor character called Hanako. She's terribly written, as her defining traits are being a girl boss and being fat. In this case, it's used to punish Yosuke for coming up with this idea, as she appears behind us. Wanting to go on a bike ride with Yosuke, she hops on, only for it to break under the pressure. He then walks off talking about how a girl needs a guy to be steady. Highly depressed, Yosuke gets a lift home from Kanji, who finally understands the point of what Yosuke was trying to do. Anyways, almost immediately after that, Nanako asks what happens to people who die. Yeesh, that's a real tone changer. Since she's a child, Yu gives her the kid-friendly version, before Nanako asks if Dojima cares more about bad people than her. After giving answers to her questions, Yu sends her off to bed. The next day, Yukiko brings up the idea of getting everyone together to get groceries for the school campout. Yu, Chie, and Yukiko are all getting supplies, while Yosuke is elsewhere getting something else. The girls are also having a hard time figuring out what to get, as while they know they want to make curry, they don't know what makes it. Add on top the fact that they keep on adding more and more to their shopping list that most certainly should be nowhere near curry, and Yu already knows this is going to be the most horrible creation ever. Meeting back with our protagonists after their hours of cleaning the mountain, Yosuke expresses how excited he is to eat something that girls make. Yu, already knowing how horrible it is about the taste, is understandably apprehensive about the idea. Switching to the girls, and it's obvious that they've made a horrible meal. They, for some reason, serve it up to us, and that's when Yosuke takes a bite. After rightfully calling them out on just how bad it was, the group turns to Yu's opinion for some reason. There's no way out of eating it, so we also take a bite. Being forced back into our tents by Mr. Morioka without having eaten, everyone goes back to their tents pissed. At night, we meet up with Kanji, who is also in our tent, for some reason despite not being part of our group. Yosuke wonders why Kanji is even here, to which he replies both that he'd be expelled if he didn't come to camp, and that his tent was way too quiet, so he decided to hop over to ours. Yosuke also reveals that the other people who would have been in the tent with him all smartly called sick. As we settle in for bed, Yosuke starts his villain arc by asking if they're safe in the tent with Kanji. He gets obviously pissed at Yosuke for that, homophobia, and goes to quote-unquote prove his manliness by going to the women's tents. Heading to said girls' tent, and the girls are being keeping awake due to Hanako's snoring.
Sheesh. We can't sleep, we can't walk around.
Do you think she'd stop snoring if I covered her nose and mouth?
No!
After that comment, they hear rustling in the bushes outside. Back to Yu and Yosuke, and we see that the girls have gone over to their tent to try and stay the night with them. Letting them in because of the drumming drunk moron, they tell us about how Kanji came in and suddenly fainted. After setting clear bounds in the tent, we finally drift asleep. Oh, but if you thought this whole ordeal was over, then really it's not. Yosuke brings everyone over to the river once they're all let out, and after coercing the girls to say that if they had swimsuits they'd get in, Yosuke does the worst thing he could have and pulls out ones he bought for them. Yeah, so I think I need to address this now. Yosuke's character takes a real nosedive around this time. His antics go from kinda minor to sexual harassment very quickly. A lot of other people have gone on to talk about just how bad this event is for his character, so since I'm not that qualified to talk about it, and because it's not really relevant to the video as a whole, I'm not going to go much into details. That being said, it's also obvious the game doesn't agree with his actions, since once the girls push them into the river, they realize that Mr. Morioka has been throwing up upstream. Soon after that whole fiasco, we're all watching TV when there's a press conference about an idol taking a break from her job. Her name is Risette Kujikawa, better known as Risette, and after getting tired of idol work has decided to go back to her hometown. This just so happens to be Inaba, so Dojima muses on how the one good thing about Inaba was how quiet it was. The next day the group comes together to discuss her coming to Inaba. Yosuke, quite unapologetic for his actions, talks about how much of a fan he is of her. Chie then brings up the fact that the current running theory on the murders is that the people who appear on TV get kidnapped, so they come to the soft conclusion that she could be the next victim, so we wait for her arrival. Now, I'm not really talking about quests, you can assume I'm working on them in the background, but I really can't believe that they named one, quote, I wish my life had meaning again. It's a quest where you have to work on models to give to this guy who loves them and wants to see people make them. I just had to share that, sorry. With my personal side tangent out of the way though, we watch the Midnight Channel where Risette is quite obviously on. Coming back together tomorrow, we talk about if it was her or not, but ultimately we decide to go investigate at the tofu shop where she's staying. Sitting there with Yosuke and Kanji, we meet up with Adachi and Dojima, who are making sure the crowd doesn't get too rowdy. That being said, the crowd thins quickly after not being able to see her at the shop. Going in, everyone thinks that they're seeing the old lady who usually works there, but it turns out to be Risette. After ordering some tofu, we tell her about our suspicions about her being kidnapped, but she doesn't think she's in any danger. All the while, Yosuke keeps being a creep, and getting called out a bit. I swear he gets past us eventually. Dojima goes back and also has the same concerns we have, though she tells him about how we ought to told her about it. At dinner that night, he scolds us for getting involved, telling us it's a job for the police. He gives up this line of questioning quickly though, and you all finish up. The group catches up the next day, confident in their guess of Risette being the next victim. Preparing for another stakeout and while getting some supplies, we catch Adachi trying to keep an eye on us. It's obvious Dojima sent him here to watch over us, but Shie points out how useful it would be to have a police investigator with us in case we manage to catch the killer. Arriving at the tofu shop, and after waiting for a bit, Yukiko finally notices someone on the telephone pole who looks mighty suspicious. Chasing him down after he gets away, he manages to get to the highway where he threatens to jump into traffic. Luckily though, Yosuke manages to distract him long enough for us to grab him and get him to a safer spot. Confronting him, he gets surprised by us calling him the killer, leading us to realize he isn't. Even still, Adachi arrests him, even after the culprit claims only to be trying to take pictures of Risette's room, which apparently isn't a crime in Japan? Yeah, so he most definitely is not the killer, given that he has an explanation for what he was doing there, even if it was pretty terrible. How he hasn't been built up as the guy at all, and also because Risette has just been kidnapped by the time they get back. That night, we watch the Midnight Channel again, and we finally see that she's been kidnapped. Her shadows are hosting a striptease show for a minor. Please, Atlas, stop sexualizing minors! Checking on inside the TV world, Teddy has been having some difficult thoughts about who he is. He's also been feeling quite lonely since we only visit to check on people thrown into the TV. Another thing is he's also been losing his ability to detect people, and he thinks that soon he won't be helpful to the team at all. Overall, it's been a pretty tough time for him, trying to figure out what he's going to do soon. However, he also manages to start a social link with you, that of the Star Arcana. Another personal tangent. At this point, I realized I screwed up. I was meant to have started I's social link, but in a cruel sequence of events starting in April, I had missed out on 1 or 2 points of courage. Meaning I couldn't invite her out on the correct day, and also meaning that she wouldn't ask me to skip class with her by now. As such, the only real choice I had was to go back and redo the entire month of the game starting from Kanji's dungeon all the way back to here, which as you can probably tell was pretty annoying. Anyways, I decided to do her social link or whatever. Nah, I jest. I's social link is alright, but I'll get to it when she gets better, because for now she's still keeping up with her rich person persona. Anyways, the guide states I say Risette early, and so that's what I do. From this point, I have about 8 video clips of me exploring the first 2 dungeons, the biggest reason for which being dancing hands. I've seen around the internet complain about how hard it is to find these guys, and frankly I agree. The method I found to be useful was to look for red shadows on floor 2 of the bathhouse, but even if there was one in the group, it feels like a 50-50 chance of them dropping thick hides, which I need for a book, and subsequently a trophy further into the game. Honestly, I think I only spent about 2 hours grinding for them, so it wasn't really that hard of a grind, but I do remember it being quite taxing, especially because I wanted to get to the next dungeon. Speaking of which, Teddy manages to get a potential location and we head over. Everyone's a bit stumped and mystified about how the area looks, while Teddy is trying to make a bad joke about zebras and their strips. Passing by that, we finally get the option to choose my party. Counter to what many people would probably choose, I decided not to have Kanji in my team and just run with the base 3. It wasn't really his fault, but more so I just wanted to try some of the worst party members, since this is my 3rd playthrough of the game. Speaking of Yosuke, I found him to really start falling behind. His moveset kind of gets left during this dungeon, not learning many medium skills, which is what you'd expect from a third dungeon. This meant that the majority of attacks came from Chie and Yukiko, who are both still great party members in their own rights. Ultimately, getting to the boss of the dungeon is never the hard part, so I'll just skip over getting there. Once we manage to get to her, and see that she's still in her working clothes, we also see that her shadow is still there. It's talking about how her role as an idol has led her to have a very negative self-view of herself. It also talks about how she's sick of being some cliché and that Risette doesn't exist. After threatening to take it all off, but I swear this game gets past all this stuff really soon, Risette breaks down and tells her it isn't her, and so starts the boss fight. Shadow Risette is kind of easy. Even though she has access to every type of elemental attack, it's all weak, so as long as the person weak to it doesn't fall, you'll be fine. As such, I found myself getting into a rhythm of Yukiko healing, while the rest of us attack unless needed. At the halfway point of the fight, however, she scans everyone and suddenly becomes invulnerable. This actually finishes the fight soon after, where everyone gets wiped out. Except for Teddy, because as the shadows lining up for the finishing shot on all us, he jumps in the way, saving all of us by charging into the shadow, killing it. After that valiant charge, Teddy has been battered and bruised really badly, but he's fine, so we check up on Risette. Helping her up, she manages to accept her shadow by confronting the fact there is no real her, and that all parts of her are her, and in doing so she gains her persona. However, Teddy was also listening and starts wondering if there is no real him. At this point, his shadow comes out, though Risette does point out she sensed a powerful force intervening here. Other Teddy starts talking about how the truth is unattainable and how, even if you come across what you think is the truth, there is no way of telling if it is the truth. It tells us to live in ignorant bliss, as it's much easier to live that way. Teddy retorts that it doesn't know what it's talking about and how, even though he isn't that smart, he's trying his best, both in battle and figuring out himself. Other Teddy comes back, saying that his efforts are fruitless given he already knows who he is, hollow, and that in looking for another answer, he is denying his truth. Teddy then tries to get it to shut up while getting knocked out. It goes on to tell us how we will all die here. Given that Teddy was our navigator, Risette gets up and helps us take down Teddy's shadow. Yeah, so this is the actual main boss of the dungeon. He deals some pretty crazy damage and can do both physical and ice attacks. This is especially bad for Yukiko, who was weak to ice, but that being said, she was able to dodge ice pretty often, so I might have just gotten lucky there. Another good thing about this boss is that its attacks are scripted. If it decreases defense, it'll be a large physical attack, mind charge, it'll be an ice attack, etc. The other fortunate thing is that I managed to get a persona that was able to absorb ice, so I'd be fully healed every time it tried that. Overall, while it is a pretty long fight, it's not terribly hard, so we managed to defeat it in the end. After beating it, Teddy goes through a similar process of accepting his situation and gets his own persona. Risette collapses, obviously because she just awoke to a persona and had to help with the fight, so we get her out of there while Teddy stays to train himself and grow his fur back. Just before that though, Teddy talks to you on the side about how he feels there's something only he can do, getting another rank up in the process. This also gets us the trophy The Lounge is Closed for rescuing Risette. That night, Dojima comes home, but instead of being there as a father, he comes back drunk with Adachi. They went drinking because a new kid was hired to help with the investigation, especially since Dojima hasn't made any progress in the case since April. He also chews us out due to being at crime scenes whenever things happen, though he quickly forgets since Nanako makes his bed. The next day, I actually managed to get another trophy, Grant Over Your Desires, for buying 5 items from Haneka's shop. I also got drafted back into the student health organization, where they start badmouthing Konishi on how he doesn't have to do anything. Turns out, however, he was outside listening to the group. Adachi also wants us to hang out, and we get to see the old lady who's been harassing him finally get back with her son, who is also called Toru, Adachi's first name, and they get introduced. Having met the guy, Adachi's astonished the old lady thought that he was her son, especially since they look nothing alike. Overall, he's glad though, as now she'll stop annoying him and he can finally be alone again, as he would much rather be doing that. Naoki Konishi finally opens up to us and takes his sister's handkerchief back, before apologizing for being rude earlier. As such, starts the Hanged Man social link, which honestly is probably one of my favorite in the series. Another social link I start now is the Devil social link, which is probably one of the weirder ones to start. Get away from me! Get away from me! No, I don't know what you're getting at. No! Get out of here! Let me go! What do you mean no one will see? I'm not interested! Stop it! No! I'm not adorable! Get out of here! No! Go! Go! No! What the hell do you mean? What? What do you mean I'm fun? You've seen me for like 2 seconds. Get out of here! No mischievous affection! No! I don't want a faint bond! Screw this nurse! No! No! Oh, of course it's the Devil Arcana! The next day, I wasn't waiting for you! No! I don't want to study with you! Don't teach me yourself. Hanging out with Chie, and while talking about the meat skewers, an officer comes up to us and tells us about some delinquents who are bullying kids around here. This only motivates Chie to get stronger to help those in need. Meanwhile, Kanji asks to go to the local mountain, and there we meet a kid who lost a stuffed bunny he borrowed. Looking around the river the kid threw it into, Kanji can't find it. Realizing he could probably make one though, he plans with the kid to make sure that everything is set right. Working at the hospital again, and this time we see a lady in a morning dress. We then get screwed up for more sexual harassment. Finally, we get some actual character from the nurse, called Sayoko, where she's lonely because her patients always leave. Finally, the fog rolls around town, signaling the end of Risette's dungeon, and yet not all is right in Inaba. Arriving at Junes to talk about the dead body with the group, and Yosuke reveals it was Mr. Moroka who was dead, our own homeroom teacher. This doesn't make sense to the team however, as they've usually had the Midnight Channel reveal the next victim. After Kanji pulls the group together, we go check in with Teddy that he wasn't thrown in the TV at the last second. However, as we're about to enter, a few employees stop Yosuke. They tell him how there's a mascot bear that's wandering around the store. Letting him go, we find Teddy, enjoying himself in a massaging chair, all the while the group is wondering how this even happened. Teddy just says he didn't think about going up the same way we did until that day, so he did, asking if anyone was in the other world before he left, and he absolutely says no. There was nobody there, meaning Mr. Moroka didn't die in the TV world. Before meeting up with Risette though, we take Teddy to our spot, and while speculating on the new murder, Teddy starts getting hot and wanting to take off his suit. Even though the others don't want an empty mascot costume walking around, Teddy reports it isn't empty anymore, and in the second anime cutscene in a while, shows he grew himself an inside. While the girls take him to get some clothes, the guys go check on Risette now that she's recovered. They get a bit sidetracked in eating topsicles outside her shop however, which is when the girls get back from buying Teddy's clothing. Yosuke decides to make sure that Teddy is taken care of for now by giving Kanji $10 for more topsicles to share while they go talk with Risette, which Chie takes as a way of telling Yosuke who fronted the bill. Somehow they convince the clerk to allow them to buy everything on Yosuke's bill, which is even more dickish considering the fact he also just bought a new bike. She starts talking high and mighty, but she's also the only one there who doesn't have a job. With Teddy and Kanji getting ice cream and Chie and Yosuke fighting, Yukiko and Yu go off to talk with Risette about how she's doing. Getting there, we find the blue kid again, who reveals he is the one who's helping the police investigate the case. He tells us his name is Naoto Shirogane, and starts talking about the case with us. Somehow, he's already figured out the connection between being on TV and getting kidnapped. But once he leaves, Risette comes back, finally recovered from being in the TV world. She takes us all to the shrine to thank us for rescuing her, and also to explain what's been going on with the police behind our backs. She then decides to join us because we really need a new navigator, given Teddy will be fighting for us now. Once done talking, we need to figure out where Teddy will stay, and Yosuke agrees to house him. Somehow convinces his parents to take him this random child. Anyways, now's a good time to end the video, so thank you for watching this. If you could subscribe, it would mean the world to me, and it would also mean my channel could start growing. I've started recording for a different video than Persona, but it'll be a bit before that comes out, so by subscribing you'll be able to see my content when it comes out. But until then, that's the end of the Risette case, so I'll see you next time. Peace!